Welcome to West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church, a spiritual community whose hope is audacious and whose vision is for a more equitable and just world for all. I'm Reverend Anthony Makar, senior minister of this community, and joining me this morning are Dave Blazer, music director, he's right there. Grace Durfee, worship associate, and Christine Solante on the worship tech team, who is enabling people beyond these walls to be a part of our service. Welcome everyone to this community of worship. There are so many joys in our world, and there is also so much suffering, so many conflicts, not enough compassion. May our worship hour be one where we are finding our joys magnified, and each of us is finding the healing and hope that we may be needing this morning. A special welcome to you if you are a newcomer to our community, gay or straight, cisgender or transgender, whatever your race or ethnicity, whether you are here in the sanctuary or participating at home, you are welcome here. If you are here in person, be sure to stop by the Welcome Center out in the hallway if you haven't already. And if you have joined us via the live stream, our membership and engagement coordinator, Diane Alcorn, would love to reach out to you. Her contact information is being added to the chat as we speak. I'd like to spotlight one announcement this morning. Though to get the full story on it, as with everything else going on, please check out your weekly e-newsletter. It comes out on Fridays. This announcement is about a vigil coming up on January 6th. On January 6th, as we all know, America will mark the one-year anniversary of the assault on our United States Capitol by extremists who wish to subvert our democracy and the integrity of our elections. UU Justice Ohio, UUJO, is co-sponsoring and promoting statewide January 6th vigils with Our Revolution Ohio. All of the vigils will take place on Thursday, January 6th from 6:30 to 7:30. The Cleveland vigil will be at 50 Public Square downtown. The Social Action Committee is planning to join the vigil and invites all of us to participate with them. We will meet downtown on Public Square. To sign up, you'll want to contact Kathy Ross. And if you'd like to carpool from West Shore, again, contact Kathy Ross. Once again, welcome to this new day.
Every week we light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. It's a beautiful reminder that no matter how many jarring events might happen over the course of the week, the gathered community that is West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church is a source of stability and meaning that we can depend on. So now I light the chalice with these words. A Chalice Lighting for the New Year by Lisa Doge. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in an astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For all the times and all the ways we have begun anew together. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. Let us witness to the unity of our spirit by saying together our unison affirmation words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to love one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio su ley. Este es nuestro magnífico convenio, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
And now we turn our thoughts to this congregation that sustains us and to the world and its common good we all share in. We pause to remember the joys and struggles and sorrows among us. We begin with a heartfelt thanks that goes to Kathy Woodbridge for making sure that our senior members have received birthday cards from this congregation for the past 5 years. That is nearly 80 cards per year. We truly appreciate her gifts of time and attention to detail and her kindness. So we're wishing Kathy the best this morning. We also want to extend our deepest sympathy to the family and friends of Leah Bailey, who died December 30th after her long struggle with multiple sclerosis. Leah was 56, the mother of son Mitchell Baker and daughter Kadia Baker, who's deceased. She was a vibrant church member and a perfect friend and teacher to all who were lucky enough to know her. Our heartfelt sympathy also goes out to John Serafini on the passing of his wife, Elizabeth, on December 25th at the age of 88. She was a mother of 3 sons, a stepmother of 3, and a grandmother. A memorial service will be held at a later date. And finally, I want to lift up the name of Kim Collins, who is the mother of Grace's son's girlfriend and probable future daughter-in-law. She has passed away, and so we are extending love to Grace and that whole family. So we're thinking about them this morning. And now I want to invite you to bring to mind people who are important to you, members of this congregation or not, people with hurts, people with gladness. Bring them to mind right now. Love them with your empathy. Pray for them if this is a part of your spiritual practice, or simply send them good energy that would be most useful to them. Let's just do that right now. We now reaffirm the value of our community by turning to each other here in the sanctuary. Let us greet each other as it feels comfortable doing so. For some, a namaste gesture at a distance will be enough. For others, maybe an elbow bump or more. Let us greet each other now. And now I invite us to enjoy our first hymn of the day. I invite you to hum along. It'll be Gather the Spirit, number 347. Please stand as you are willing and able.
I don't know about you, but I love a new year. I especially relish that week in between Christmas and New Year's, which seems like a much-needed time for an exhale. This provides a great time to reflect on what's going well, what's not quite where I want it to be, and to recognize what's beckoning or inviting further action. In taking stock of my life, one of the areas that I've been giving a lot of attention to is that of connection. Many of you know that my husband and I moved to the Cleveland area about 3.5 years ago without knowing a soul. Talk about a fresh start. This church, West Shore, has been the greatest source of connection for me since moving. There's a lot that has been going well for me in this area. I've always believed that the more you put into anything, the more you're going to get. So I jumped right in by joining the pastoral care team. The personal check-ins at our monthly meetings, in addition to conversations that I had with people while doing pastoral care outreach, leading death cafes, or while manning the pastoral care table after services, helped me to get to know a number of people. Those connections have led to others. I learned about West Shore's involvement in the Urban Hope and started volunteering during the growing season at the Kentucky Garden. I was invited to help facilitate the Widening the Circle conversations, where two people would meet to share their experiences and journey around race. Just recently, I was a table host at the Justice Visioning World Cafes, where I enjoyed learning about people's involvement and hearing different perspectives. One of the best things I did this past year to help foster a sense of connection was to join a connection circle. Since they didn't have enough leaders, I signed up to be one. So now I've gotten to know the other connection circle leaders as well as the people in my own circle. What I have loved about being in a connection circle is that I'm getting to know a small group of people very well. We always begin by checking in with what's been going on for us personally over the past month. We use a process of deep listening, which creates a safe, sacred feeling kind of space. And then we dive into a discussion of the topic of that month's Soul Matters packet. This packet is full of great quotes, suggested activities for exploration, and thought-provoking questions that spark rich, substantial conversation. Even if it's been a busy month and one or more of us hasn't had much time to work with the packet, what comes up in our meetings is always engaging. Where I'd like to put more effort this year, now that we're slowly getting back to in-person activities, is attending more coffee hours and taking advantage of more one-off activities like the recent spiritual retreat and the Zentangle meditation event. What wasn't working for me, which I have now changed, is that the shorelines were going to my husband's email. And I also didn't always completely read the e-news. I realized that I missed out on some activities simply because I learned about them after the fact. And as much as I enjoy being a worship associate, I also feel like it's too much of a one-sided conversation. I share a lot about my thoughts and experiences, and I'd love to hear more about yours. So if you see me around, let's talk. And what about you? How are you already strongly connecting to and through West Shore? How would you like to get more involved or deepen your connections? What would happen if we all use this new year to build back better as a community?
Thank you, Grace. And now I would like to share a note from Kelly Pincus, who is at home under the weather. So please send her some good energy. So here's what Kelly says. Kelly is one of the co-leads of our Connection Circle program, and she wants to say a couple words about that. So she says, joining a Connection Circle can be an integral part of your spiritual practice, as well as a way to deepen relationships at West Shore. Especially during COVID, it has become difficult to form meaningful relationships and connections at church, as well as finding a way to staying connected to the church. Joining a circle may be a perfect answer. The advantages to joining a circle are too numerous to list, but here's a few highlights, she says. Number one, engaging in conversation centered around a shared theme and discussion materials. Number two, meeting and forming deep relationships with church members you might not otherwise engage with. And number three, connecting with West Shore through new relationships. Just listen to this quote, which comes from the book entitled "The Body Keeps the Score" brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. The quote is, "Social support is not the same as merely being in the presence of others. The critical issue is reciprocity, being truly heard and seen by the people around us, feeling that we are held in someone else's mind and heart. For our physiology to calm down, to heal, to grow, we need that visceral feeling of safety." That's the quote. And it eloquently summarizes connection circles and the benefits of joining. Connection circles can truly become that place which offers members safety and a place to be seen and heard deeply. In addition to discussing the month's discussion materials, members may share their stories, including joys and sorrows and politics and health concerns and so much more. She goes on to say most connection circles meet once a month at a mutually agreed upon place and time. For example, one circle meets on the third Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. Many groups meet at the church or via Zoom, or in warmer months in parks or in patios around town. One group goes out to dinner during the summer months. Central to the healthy functioning of connection circles is commitment about attending. Your regular presence is required. There are currently about 10 of these connection circles here at West Shore, and we want them to be more. If you are interested in joining a group or even helping to co-facilitate a new group, please reach out to either Diane Elkhorn or Kelly Pincus. They would love to help you find your circle. Facilitators are offered training and support through a monthly gathering of facilitators, and I join that too as well. So, she concludes, start off your new year right by finding your connection circle. They are waiting for you. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, for that message. Hope you're feeling better. And all I want to add to this is simply gratitude that a place like West Shore exists to begin with, because without that, there would be no connection circle possibilities at all. And you know, your financial gifts make it possible for this community to continue to exist and to survive and to thrive. So I want to thank you for your generosity. This morning's offering will now be given and gratefully received. Let's now extend that beautiful musical moment into a time of meditation. And today, in our meditation, we're going to use a mantra. A mantra is a phrase that here you will repeat silently in your mind. But in other circumstances, you can repeatedly sing it or chant it, hum it, write it down. Mantras can come in many forms, but they're all designed to bring you into a state of deeper awareness and presence. They can be especially helpful in odd moments of the day, while falling asleep, for example, or waking up, when doing a repetitious task, when waiting in line for something, or especially in times of stress or anger. So now, close your eyes if you wish. Allow the peace of this moment to wash over you, to soothe you. Our meditation mantra today will be deep peace of the infinite peace. Let the repetition of these words be like a magnet, attracting to you all that those words hold. Deep peace of the infinite peace. 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 May it be so. You know, it was Nobel Peace Prize-winning writer Elie Wiesel who once wrote, "The true challenge of life is not just in beginning, but in beginning again." Life continually opens up new doors for us. The new year of 2022 is one such door. But the question then becomes, can we actually step through? What if we can't because we're just too weary? Some of you might be feeling this way from just the wear and tear of the holidays. But I am really talking about a more enduring sense of languishing. How events in our private worlds can wear us down over time in so many ways. News like the death of Betty White, right? And then, of course, we have all just gone through 2 years of a world pandemic. 6 months ago, it looked like COVID was petering out, and then came the Delta surge. And then just a couple weeks before Christmas, Omicron came. Meanwhile, crises of historic proportions are upon us. American democracy in upheaval, reproductive rights on the ropes, climate change on overdrive, structural oppressions like racism that can be so challenging to address. A recent article in the New York Times talking about a high school in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, captures the impact of all of this on high schoolers. Says the article, kids are feeling like, after witnessing Trump, political unrest, what happened in the streets with Black Lives Matter, and now the pandemic, they're feeling like the world is out of control. So they're like, why should I even try to be in control? Students move through the hallways sluggishly, looking at their phones or straight ahead as if still staring at computer screens. Life during the pandemic is when you feel emptiness, but the emptiness is really heavy. The new year of 2022 beckons, but I can feel that apathy in me. I can feel that certain deflation in me, like I am a beach ball that has gone flat. Can you feel that too? Positive psychologist Martin Seligman offers us a phrase that might help us to understand what is happening, and that phrase is learned helplessness. Years ago in his laboratory, he demonstrated what it looks like. Dogs were exposed to electric shocks, and they were not allowed to do what nature would compel them to do, which would be either to fight or to flee. They had nowhere to flee. They were not allowed to fight. The helplessness that they learned went down so deep that when those poor dogs, when they were again exposed to electric shocks, but were allowed to escape, they did not escape. They just sat down on the electrified floor. They just sat there and they suffered. They could not imagine anything better for themselves. Thus, we loop back to what Elie Wiesel just said, what we heard him just say, that the true challenge of life is not in beginning, it is about beginning again. Elie Wiesel knows what he is talking about. He was a Holocaust survivor. That's what he was challenged to begin again from. So we're talking about this today, facing our present moment with full consciousness, feeling the full challenge of it. And today, our sacred text is the holiday movie classic, It's a Wonderful Life. Many of us, I trust, have seen that movie, and so we are not fooled by the cheerfulness of that title. It is a gripping portrayal of a man named George Bailey, whose regrets almost killed him. And then something happened that saved his life. So we're going to take a few pointers from George Bailey this morning as we look to our own beginning agains in 2022. And we start, unsurprisingly, with the theme of loss and with unwelcome troubles. And in George Bailey's own case, we're talking about the loss of his youthful hopes. At 12 years old, he is already enthused about exotic locations he wants to explore, Tahiti and its coconuts, the unforgettable color of the Emerald Sea, all so far away from the boring town of his birth, Bedford Falls. And as he grows older, his hopes only grow clearer. When he is 21, we see him buying luggage for his trip to Europe. He's got his life all figured out. First, he's going to go to Europe, then he's going to go to college, and then he's going to build things, right? Skyscrapers, hundreds of feet tall, and bridges a mile long. He's going to be a millionaire. And it's around this time that his father asks him if he would be interested in returning home after college to run the family business, the Bailey Brothers Business and a Building and Loan Company. Hearing this, George feels diminished. Right before, he was laughing and joking with everyone in the house, but when his father asks him this question point blank, George gets real quiet. And he says, I couldn't face being cooped up for the rest of my life in a stuffy little office. I want to do something big, something important with my life. Now, right now, I want you to think back to a time when you were just like George and you were caught up in hopes of any kind, but then you came face to face with practical demands and you had to let those hopes go. Of course, you might not have to think so far back after all, because how many of you had important events canceled because of COVID-19? It was a great irony that in late February and early March of 2020, West Shore introduced its annual pledge drive theme of "It's a Wonderful Church." Do you remember that? And we asked people to speculate what life would be like if there had never been a West Shore. And then the unthinkable happened. The second week of March of 2020, when the reality of the pandemic became inescapable, and we would have to cancel face-to-face church gatherings and reconstitute ourselves on a purely virtual basis. No more of the physical experience of togetherness, which as biological beings we crave. No more laughing together or singing together. No more gatherings in Baker Hall and coffee hour. No more handshakes. No more hugs. No more. For some of us, the loss of our face-to-face community was tantamount to West Shore no longer existing. It is heartbreaking. It really is. But let's get back to the George Bailey story. We know his father unexpectedly dies, and George has got to give up his trip to Europe so he can settle his father's business affairs. He does it, and right then, just as he's handing off important papers to the Building and Loans Board of Trustees, right that moment, moments before he is out the door, bursting with excitement on the way to college, the other shoe drops. His father's archenemy, Scrooge-like, Henry F. Potter, makes the motion that the building and loan dissolve. Potter, who is wealthy beyond measure and could easily afford to give, asks, "Are we running a business or a charity ward?" How many people you know have that attitude? Now, hearing this, something snaps in George. He finds himself saying to Potter, "You know, you're right when you say my father was not a businessman. I know that. But he did help get a few people out of your slums, Mr. Potter. And what's wrong with that? Doesn't it make them better citizens? Doesn't it make them better customers? Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you keep on talking about, they do most of the living and the dying in this community. Well, is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath? Anyway, my father didn't think so. People were human beings to him. But to you, a warped, frustrated old man, they're cattle. Well, in my book, he died a much richer man than you'll ever be." It was inspiring. So inspiring that the Building and Loan Board rejects the motion to dissolve, but only if George takes over his father's job as the leader. It is an offer he simply cannot refuse. So he gives his college funds to his younger brother, Harry, and he gets to work. The hopes of youth go away, one by one. George finds himself exactly where he thought he would never be, working in his dad's stuffy little office, stuck in stuffy Bedford Falls. He gets to continue his father's work of economic justice in the community, and while this is undeniably important, still his heart is at war with itself. He is just a mess of contradictions. He marries a beautiful, caring wife. He has wonderful children. He is loved and respected throughout Bedford Falls, but all of the wild, wonderful energy and humor of his youth is gone. He is cynical. He complains, "I want to do what I want to do." But no one is listening. No one is listening. The bounce in his soul is gone. It is like this with so many people today. The pandemic has only intensified things. Hearts burdened by lost hopes and regrets. If this had never happened, we ask. If I had just chosen this instead of that, we wonder. People thinking and feeling they are failures, even if from a more objective perspective they are genuine successes and they are genuinely loved. George is just like those poor dogs from the psychology experiment. He is so devoured by feelings of failure that even if the escape route was plainly before him, outlined in blazing lights, he wouldn't take it. He just wouldn't even know how. He wouldn't know how to begin again. And then his problems only escalate. Absent-minded Uncle Billy misplaces the $8,000, which was supposed to have been deposited in the building and loan funds. George faces bankruptcy, scandal, prison. In complete desperation, he sees no alternative but to turn to his enemy, Henry F. Potter, and do something that is utterly humiliating, to ask for help, to ask for a loan. And Potter, who is sitting in the catbird seat now, says to George, "Look at you. You used to be so cocky. You were going to conquer the world. You once called me a warped, frustrated old man. What are you but a warped, frustrated young man? A miserable little clerk, crawling in here on your hands and knees, begging for help." It's just horrible. The movie may be called It Is a Wonderful Life, but when it gets down to this part especially, I am watching it through my fingers like it is not a Christmas movie, but a horror movie on par with The Exorcist or with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially when the scene shifts to George going home and basically terrorizing the wife and the children who love him. He is a very good man who is acting out in some very bad ways. George eventually wanders onto a bridge near Bedford Falls. It is night, and snow falls in large, sticky flakes. George's face is screwed up in pain. Potter's words are ringing in his mind. "You're worth more dead than alive." Below him is the raging torrent of a river, and he looks down at that midnight river, and he is thinking midnight thoughts. And he is seconds away from making a major mistake. If he throws his body off of that bridge, he extinguishes himself. But life, the fundamental dynamic of life, wants him to keep living. It's just that it wants him to live at a higher level. Some people say it like this: life is a cosmic school, cosmic classroom, and the same challenges keep on coming our way until we learn the lessons we need to learn. That's what's happening with George. What do you think? Does this resonate with you, cosmic classroom? A quote I am cherishing these days comes from the Sufi mystic and writer Rumi, who lived in the 13th century. Almost 1,000 years ago, he wrote, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against love." In other words, our fundamental reality is love. We don't have to work hard for it. It is who we are. But when we are traumatized, again, like those dogs in the psychology experiment, those poor dogs, barriers get built up within us. We find ourselves paradoxically cut off from the love that is who we are and is our birthright. Paradoxically cut off. good people that we too act out. Yet there is this dynamism in the universe that wants to dismantle every barrier, dissolve them, heal them. Some people call it God. Others call it the spirit of life, the goddess, Buddha mind, Jesus, Shakti energy, Krishna. Muhammad, from the great tradition of Islam, says this. Listen, he says, when you take one step towards Allah, know that He takes 10 steps towards you. So here we are, in this gracious cosmic school, right there with George Bailey. And there truly are times when one tough thing happens after the next tough thing, and we feel shattered, and we feel like we just cannot go on any longer. There he is, George Bailey, a man who has lost the bounce in his soul, and it is so flat he just cannot cope with the loss of $8,000. He just can't take it anymore. He finds himself alone, beaten, standing on a snowy bridge in the night, raging river below. Suicide seems like it's the only way. And then, splash. Someone else takes a dive. And it takes George only 2 seconds, all of 2 seconds, to grasp the situation, and he jumps right in to save that person who is drowning. He risks his life to save another. It is incredible. Adversity has broken George down, and yet in the midst of direst weakness, he discovers that strength still remains. It's that way for us too. Sometimes we can find ourselves saying, as we contemplate horrible possibilities, if such and such ever happened, I could never survive it. Or, if such and so ever happened, I wouldn't know what to do. And yet when the worst happens, and we go numb with shock, we will discover a warrior-like persistence within us, simply to take things one step at a time, one moment at a time. Events rush and swirl past us. The broken pieces of life they overwhelm, but for a time we just let things be. It is just enough to keep moving. And somehow we do. Somehow we just keep going. This is the inner warrior. This is the confidence in ourselves that starts to grow, and we learn that whatever else the future may bring, whatever the next variant of the virus may be, we have stood in the fire before. We will stand in the fire again. West Shore, this is who we have been for the past 2 years. Scrambling to do our best to be the church in extremely strange times. And we need to keep on keeping on. Communities that pull together and not apart are the ones which survive the tough times. We have seen this over and over again throughout human history. The times are indeed tough now, but I believe that if each of us practices patience and commitment and gratitude, we will rebound from this pandemic period stronger and more vibrant than we ever have been. Sometimes it is only when the worst has happened that we can find our way back to our true original resilience. And the road there can take us straight through the valley of the shadow of death. But then there is light. It's always there, somewhere, at the end of the tunnel. Light that shines brightest amid the shadows. And now comes perhaps the most profound insight from the George Bailey movie. How a resurrection of resilience, a capacity to genuinely begin again, requires a renewal of imagination. Here's where the person George saved from drowning comes into play. None other than Clarence Oddbody, angel second class. Clarence's gift to George is in transforming how George imagines his life. George gets to see what Bedford Falls would have become had he never been born. The fact is, there can be no beginning again, as Elie Wiesel puts it, if our imaginations are stuck in a rut. We must get out of that rut. If we are seeing the world from the viewpoint of a worm, we got to change that. We got to step back. We got to see things from a wider and larger perspective. We got to step out of the daily clamor to refocus. It is exactly what poet Rainer Maria Rilke was writing about when he said, "Sometimes a man stands up during supper and walks outdoors, and he keeps on walking because of a church that stands somewhere in the east, and his children say blessings on him as if he were dead. And another man who remains inside his own house, stays there, inside the dishes, inside the glasses, so that his children have to go out, far out into the world, toward that same church, which he forgot." Rilke speaks of people getting stuck inside their house, stuck inside the dishes, stuck inside the glasses, and therefore forgetting the sacred things. And It's a Wonderful Life, the movie, speaks of people like George getting stuck in their fears, stuck in their failures, stuck in their regrets. But then Clarence Oddbody, angel second class, blows George's mind, opens it up. George sees truly the world without him turns out to be a hellish place indeed. He comes to know he was living a wonderful life already. Everything he truly and honestly needed for happiness he already had. Even with all the bad luck circumstances that seemed time and again to prevent him from pursuing his youthful dreams. Even though he never became a world traveler or went to college, even though he never built that skyscraper hundreds of feet high or that bridge a mile long, even so, the worth of his life was not diminished one whit. Worthy dreams can happen, even in a stuffy small office in boring Bedford Falls. A hero journey, right there in the everyday, being there for people in need again and again, even when it puts him at risk, standing up for the little guy against people, bullies like Henry F. Potter. The only thing missing is him getting his inner life right, getting his imagination right. Higher consciousness taking stage, replacing the lower consciousness, which was only ever about one thing, and that is fear. And the vision of Bedford Falls without him does the trick. He cries out, "Clarence, Clarence, help me. Get me back, get me back. I don't care what happens to me. Get me back to my wife and kids. Help me, Clarence. Please, I want to live. I want to live again. I want to live again." This is pure warrior energy. Because as far as he knows, he is still out $8,000. Coming back to life means facing bankruptcy, scandal, prison. That stuff doesn't go away. But he will move heaven and earth to achieve the life that he has always wanted, which is the life he's always been living, but only now does he realize it. And so he rushes home. Bank examiners are there to question him. The police are there ready to take him in. All he wants to see is Mary. Where's Mary? There she is. And he looks at her in a way that leaves no doubt to the viewer's mind He's madly in love. His youth, his humor is all back. He's not afraid anymore. And that's the journey of his life, from innocence to woundedness and trauma and brokenness to rebirth and new life. It is the entire phoenix process. His life and ours too. Life has a higher plan for us all, and life is pushing us. Life is pushing us from the ashes of fear-based lower consciousness to consciousness that goes shining with love. It is happening to us all. The phoenix process. It is happening to this congregation, which, like all congregations everywhere, has been hurt by the trauma of the world pandemic. But our beloved community will survive and be better for it, and we need everyone to be a part of that recovery. If West Shore never existed these past 75 years, yeah, you bet, thousands upon thousands of lives would have been far worse off, and Cleveland would have lost critical spiritual and social justice leadership. And now we face our next 75 years. And what is next? It's up to us. I challenge each and every one of us here in the sanctuary and at home. And if folks aren't listening to this sermon, you need to share this sermon with them. The challenge is, how can we each find ways of helping to repair the frayed fabric of our community? What is the role that you can play? What might your answer be if you saw this conversation, this congregation with Clarence Oddbody eyes? You feel me? Same question now, but about our more personal, individual journeys in the new year of 2022. What is for sure is that the world we begin again in is the same as in 2021. American democracy in upheaval, reproductive rights on the ropes, climate change on overdrive, structural oppressions like racism that can be so challenging to address, and on top of it all, COVID-19 that appears like it's here to stay. This is our version of the bankruptcy, scandal, and prison awaiting George in the movie, but it's not a movie for us. But also like George, if we can see our basic situation with odd-body eyes, then we will be re-energized for this. We too will rush back into the fray with a renewed sense of passion and gratitude and also humor. We too will move heaven and earth to achieve the life that we have always wanted, which we have discovered is the life that we have already been living, our life as it is, a meaning-filled life, a wonderful life. Wonderful, even if we never traveled to that exotic location, or went to that school, or built that mile-long bridge. A hero journey right here, being there for people in need, again and again, even when it puts us at risk. Standing up for the little guy against bullies like Henry F. Potter. Tap into that odd body vision. Tap into it. You tap into it. I'll tap into it. Tap into it. And yes, even from the worst, we can and we will begin again. Happy New Year. Please rise now, as you're willing and able. Hum along to our last hymn of the day, number 346. Come, sing a song with me.
Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again.
A quick reminder, please join me for the sermon chat at 12:30. I will see you on Zoom. And now we go into our new year, and I wish for you that you take these words of a Gaelic blessing with you. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you. So may it be. Go in peace.